strategist with an advertising agency, but we don't call ourselves advertising anymore. We call ourselves creative agencies. What exactly strategy means when you are launching a new product or you're starting out, you're thinking of an idea, a business, anything. Strategy is like understanding, what is the one thing that you are giving your customers? Why will people buy your product? So just understanding all these things, asking the right questions and coming up with the right answers. What I'm going to be presenting today is just how, when you're starting out or when you have a business, you're expanding, how you should go about thinking about it, because I think communications and marketing overall has become a little more complicated now. Your consumers end up knowing more than some of your salespeople because of so much of information available everywhere. So it becomes really important that what the story that you tell has roots in reality and truth. You can't just tell a great story and then your product doesn't deliver. It doesn't work like that anymore. So first thing first, when you're starting out, and you're thinking about your value proposition or the one thing or whatever it is, the key benefit, proposition, USP, whatever you want to call it, you need to think beyond common sense. And why I say that is because, honestly, common sense is failing us. I mean, look around you. Look around you. Your facts are being defeated by theories and just claims, which are not rooted in any reality whatsoever. We have Brexit, we have Donald Trump, we have Austria, electing people who just make these tall claims but have no idea how to really achieve those claims. So there is something there, where we need to think beyond, because this common knowledge sort of has trapped us and it's not working. An example from the business world, Google and Facebook. I mean, before Facebook came about, who would have thought that another, not a search engine, but Google's biggest competition will turn out to be a social network, which took a very different approach to creating an online ad platform. Secondly, if you take out muffin altogether and you think about cake, would you ever think of having cake for breakfast? Perhaps not. But then Starbucks changed that for us just by, reducing the size of it and having a breakfast muffin. So there is something about, this uncommon sense, so to say, or thinking beyond common sense, where you can come up with something truly singular, where people will, sort of pause and take notice of what you have to say or what is it that your product has to offer. So just to recap this, if anybody is in a F&B business or thinking of that, just to give an example, because I kind of like the strategy I cracked for that. Mostly when you think F&B brands, you think taste. And you just get caught up in that because that's where common sense leads us, that we need to appeal to the tongue. But if you think about it, before your food even reaches the tongue, it gets consumed by your brain, by your eyes, by your nose. If it's coffee, then you smell it first and smells good, I should try it. Or if it's like a fine dining place and you look at the food on the plate and you're like, looks good, must be tasty. So it's all about, maybe that's an insight, that's an uncommon sense way of looking at your F&B product or your communication. So that's the kind of thinking that you should try to arrive at. But just by, challenging some of the truths or some of the common knowledge things that you have inherited, the assumptions. That's number one. Number two, most of the times when we think communication or marketing, we try to be better than the best. We aim to be the best. However, it's no more about that. If you look at all the new set of brands that are coming out, they are very singular. They are the only ones who do what they do. Think about Line. It started off as a chat platform, but now they have Line Pay, so they have gotten into mobile money. They have Line Gift Shop, so they have a store, where you can buy gifts, etc. You can't categorize, the new age brands, or Alibaba for that matter. You can't categorize these brands into one bucket. They sort of go all over. So one way of looking at things is to not try to be better than the others around you, but to come up with a tweak or an angle that makes you the only one who does what you do. To give you Starbucks, not the best coffee in the world, but they created a distinction and created an empire just by telling a very different story around coffee. So when you have coffee, if you don't want to be at work, you don't want to be at home, you can be at Starbucks. So their whole concept is built around this third place. So that's a very different take that they took on coffee. Again, Apple, it's not a device maker, it's not an OS maker, it doesn't make smartphone, doesn't make laptops, it's a bunch of everything. In fact, recently there was this article about how in the next few years, there are going to be probably 4 or 5 brands that are going to be ruling across categories. There is Google, there is talks of Apple, and then there is Alibaba and things like that. So it's all about being the only one who does what you do rather than being better than the best. Thirdly, when you go to an agency or even when you think about your communication campaigns, you talk about consumer journey. There is an obsession with finding out what are the touch points, where I can catch them, where I can plug in my message, etc. However, sometimes it's just about capturing the purchase. So we did a campaign for Accor Hotels. As you guys know, there are a whole bunch of these price aggregator websites, right, where you can go and book hotels, like Booking.com, Agoda.com. And I think hotel brands were sort of bleeding because nobody was making a direct booking with them. So what we started doing was this campaign was all about highlighting the unfair advantage of making a direct booking with a hotel. And what ended up happening was that people started doing their research on price aggregators, but they would move over to the hotel website to make the actual booking. And the proof of how that worked is recently Priceline offered free listings to hotels just by asking for 10% stake in the direct bookings that happen with the hotels. So clearly now there's a shift in trends. So it's all about thinking strategically about your proposition. Just keep asking yourself, why? Why am I doing this? Why will people buy this? What's in it for them? What's in it for me? Just ask a lot of whys and you will arrive at something worthwhile. Another thing that we hear a lot in marketing is, what is my digital strategy? Because digital is a cost-effective medium, and people tend to be like, okay, I can't afford television, but I can do something on digital. So they're like, oh, what should my digital strategy be? But the truth of the matter is that you don't need a digital strategy. In fact, you need a strategy for the digital age, because all the categories and all the businesses where digital has sort of entered, that has been changed significantly. Think about taxis, think about food delivery. With 3D printer coming in, who knows what's going to become a food panda. Even for hotels, like Airbnb came about, which is again just digitally connecting people, and that changed the entire category completely. So when you think about your business, don't think, what am I going to do on digital? Think about how my business applies in this digital world, which is so connected using your mobile or your laptop or internet. Lastly, look for deviations. So if you're just starting out, interested in creating your own business, and you think about your product, you're in a very good place, because you can just sit back and look and think of all these little gaps there exist and how you can approach it in different ways. So some example would be Tinder. One way of looking at it is they picked 2 very dissimilar things, elements, and they combined it. So it's Google Maps, location, and it's dating. And they created a unique benefit. So think what are the 2 different unexpected things that we can bring together to create a product or a service that will create value. So Uber is another interesting example. It was a thing of barter system. So it's not a new concept. Earlier, before cash came about or currencies came about, we would just barter whatever we had for something the other person had, and we would just exchange it. Uber is something similar to that. It's just using technology. Somebody has a car to give, and you need a ride, connecting the 2. So just look around you, think about what are the 2 things you can combine, what is the thing that you can do differently, where there is a need gap. If there is no need gap, how can you create a new need, because you never run out of that. I think a lot depends on the story that you tell. So it's not about where you put your story, because there are 10 channels where you put your story and it will get captured if it's really interesting. So that's why there is this exercise of asking yourself why 5 times. So you go through the 5 layers to reach the core, where you'll find something richer, slightly richer than you would have found as the answer to the second why or the third why? There are several ways of doing it. One could be you could stand out by just taking a very different tone of voice. So you could go completely slapstick humor or extremely emotional. So go really exaggerated. So come up with like a unique tone of voice. That could be one way of standing out. It's extremely memorable. Or you come up, you come up with a device, a character, like how Das Ikis, the beer brand, they created the most interesting man in the world. Are you guys aware of that? Okay. Avion, the baby commercial. All right. So if you think about that brand was actually suffering. And in 2009, when there was a big economic slump, they wanted to, they basically were on the brink of extinction. And they had to do something so that, people will pay extra and buy their brand. So they started telling this story with just talking about kids. And I think the message that they brought to us was that, oh, our mineral water is purer than, say, Bisleri or Aquafina or any other, water bottle brand. But we were like, okay, if you tell your water is purer, people are still not going to pay extra for that, right? So how do you translate that very scientific benefit that they articulated into a consumer story? You're like, all right, let's find a metaphor. Something that you instantly associate with pure is children, babies. So how can we use that to communicate the message that it's as pure as babies? And you drink this water, you get the minerals, and you live young because it keeps you young and fresh. So, you have to sort of translate whatever benefit that you have from the business point of view into something that you would like to hear as a consumer. So what Starbucks did also was somewhat like that. If you think about coffee, all other coffee brands were talking about, we source our coffee bean from Ghana, or some other exotic location. But they're like, fine, you can source your coffee bean from wherever, but there is this whole culture around coffee, and nobody's talking about that. So it's all about finding those little gaps and a new angle to the same thing. And I think a lot of people have also said it, that everybody sees what everybody sees, but if you're able to think differently about what everyone is seeing, that's where your strategy or your insight or your unique storytelling is going to come out from. I guess if you want to create one big message, don't go too micro. In the sense, if you think about what Google says, right, it's not about technology, it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
Now, what you will do with it will be different from what I will do with it.
Yeah.
But it's part of the same pattern. It's not about technology, it's what we do with it. So I guess when you think about your messaging, think a little more like be who you want to be. So something a little more human truth. To give you an example, what I mean by human truth is whether it's a Spanish mom or an Indian mom or a Chinese mom, when it comes to her child, a mom will get super protective and will do whatever it takes to love her child, protect her child, safeguard her child, right? That's a human truth. That doesn't change by culture. So when you do this exercise of why, you will arrive at that human truth. You will go deeper than your cultural sensibility and your superficial answers. And you can base your messaging on that fifth answer to the why. So if you want to create a community on, say, women who want to wear their hair naturally, right?
Well, I mean, there is a community, but this is more like a professional platform. So everyone, what really connects all of us is our love and our education for our natural hair.
Okay. So ask yourself, why do you want to keep your natural hair? Why do you want to keep your natural hair?
Well, okay. I mean, everyone has different reasons.
No, they may not. Okay, for you it is pride. For someone else it will be because I'm just tired of curling my hair. Ask a second why. Okay, why do you think there is pride in keeping my hair naturally curly? Because I think we are all losing track of our roots. Then again, why? Why do you think you're losing track of your roots? Because everything is merging together. Like there is a lot of hybridness happening. People are marrying, in different interracial stuff, etc. So then you will arrive at, okay, the fear of losing my identity. So that is, your human truth, which is something that will cut across. I'm tired of curling my hair. Okay, why are you tired of curling your hair? Because I want to find my identity. So it'll all come down to identity. For instance, at the fifth why. This is just top of my head. So I think ask yourself why. You will arrive at something that will be more common and cut across.